Captain Jack Miller stood at attention near the wall of the grand meeting hall. His black uniform was crisp and his eyes never stopped scanning the room. Jack was not a man who smiled often. Years in the Special Forces had taught him to always look for danger. Today was historic. For the first time, humans were meeting with the leaders of the Cresty, an alien race from a planet 20 light-years away. The Cresty had contacted Earth just 1 year ago, and after months of careful talks, this face-to-face meeting was happening. Captain Miller, maintain your position, but try to look less intense, said Ambassador Davis through Jack's earpiece. We want our guests to feel welcome, not watched. Jack nodded slightly, but did not relax his posture. Something felt off about this whole setup. The meeting hall was too big, with too many entrances, bad for security. The great doors at the end of the hall opened. A group of tall, blue-skinned aliens entered. Their movements were graceful, almost like they were floating. At the front walked a male Cresty with elaborate gold markings on his blue skin. This was Lord Valen, the king of the Cresty. Behind him walked a smaller figure, his daughter, Princess Lyra. Jack's eyes narrowed as he studied the princess. Unlike her father, whose skin was deep blue, hers had a slight purple tint. Her eyes were large and silver, with no pupils that Jack could see. She moved with the same grace as her father, but seemed curious, her head turning to take in every detail of the human-built hall. Ambassador Davis stepped forward and bowed. Lord Valen, Princess Lyra, welcome to Earth. We are honored by your presence. Lord Valen made a sweeping gesture with his four-fingered hand. The honor is ours, Ambassador. My people have long wondered if we were alone among the stars. Finding your kind has been enlightening. As the formal greetings continued, Jack noticed Princess Lyra looking directly at him. Her silver eyes seemed to study him with interest. Jack maintained his professional expression, but he felt strangely exposed under her gaze. The meeting moved to a large banquet hall, where humans and Cresty sat together at long tables. Jack remained standing, positioned behind Ambassador Davis. From here, he could watch the entire room. You do not join the feast, human warrior. The voice was soft and musical. Jack turned to find Princess Lyra standing beside him. Up close, he could see the fine patterns on her skin that looked like swirling stars. My duty is to watch, Your Highness, Jack replied stiffly. And you watch very carefully, she said. My father's guards are much the same. Always alert, never resting. Before Jack could respond, he caught a flash of movement in the shadowy corner of the hall. Someone moved in a way that didn't match the formal atmosphere of the banquet. Excuse me, Your Highness, Jack said, touching his earpiece. Security team. Check the east corner, near the service entrance. Probably just the catering staff, Captain, came the reply. Stop being paranoid and let the diplomats do their job. Princess Lyra tilted her head. You saw something. Jack hesitated. Probably nothing. But in my line of work, nothing can kill you. The princess's mouth formed what might have been a smile. I believe we think alike, Captain Miller. My father was warned about coming here. Not all Cresty want peace with humans. Some fear your kind. Jack's attention sharpened. What do you mean? There are those among my people who believe humans are dangerous. Too unpredictable. Too violent. She glanced toward her father. They would rather we never met your kind at all. Jack made a mental note to report this information immediately after the banquet. If there were Cresty who opposed this meeting, security needed to be tighter. As the evening continued, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Every instinct from his years in combat told him danger was coming. But for now, all he could do was watch and wait, his eyes constantly returning to the shadowy corners of the room, and occasionally to the curious alien princess who seemed to be watching him just as carefully. The second day of talks began with smiles and hopeful speeches. Captain Jack Miller didn't share their optimism. He had doubled the security team after reporting his concerns, but Ambassador Davis had called him overprotective. Your job is to stand there and look strong, Captain, the ambassador had said. Let me handle the diplomacy. Jack stood at his post as the human and Cresty leaders sat around a large round table. Princess Lyra was seated beside her father, Lord Valen. Twice, Jack caught her silver eyes looking his way. It happened during Lord Valen's speech about future trade between their worlds. A soft hissing sound came from the air vents. Jack reacted instantly. "Gas! Everyone down!" he shouted, rushing toward the ambassador. The room erupted in confusion as a thick blue mist poured from the vents. Jack pulled his emergency breather from his belt and pressed it to his face. The gas wasn't toxic to humans. It was designed for Cresty physiology. All around him, the blue-skinned aliens were dropping to the floor, their breathing labored. "Get the humans out," Jack ordered his team. "The gas targets the Cresty." Armed figures in dark suits rushed into the room from all entrances. They wore masks and moved with purpose, heading straight for the royal family. Jack counted at least 15 attackers. "Protect the king," shouted the Cresty guards, but most were already struggling against the gas. Jack rushed forward as 3 attackers surrounded Lord Valen and Princess Lyra. He tackled the first one, sending them both crashing into a table. The attacker was strong, stronger than a human, but Jack had fought in 3 wars across 2 planets. He struck hard at the attacker's breathing apparatus, ripping it away. The rebel Cresty gasped as his own weapon turned against him. A blast of energy hit the wall near Jack's head. The other rebels were firing weapons now. Jack rolled and drew his sidearm, firing 3 precise shots. 2 rebels went down. The room was chaos. Human security and Cresty guards fought against the rebels. Jack searched for Princess Lyra in the blue mist, but couldn't see her. His radio crackled. "Captain, they're taking the princess. East exit." Jack sprinted through the confused battle. He burst through the east door into a long corridor just in time to see 4 rebels dragging Princess Lyra, who appeared unconscious. "Stop," Jack shouted, raising his weapon. 1 rebel turned and fired. Jack dove aside, the energy blast searing the air where he had stood. He returned fire, hitting the rebel in the leg. The others pulled their comrade along, still dragging the princess. Jack pursued them through the building's maze of hallways. The rebels were heading for the landing pad where ships waited. If they got the princess off-planet, she'd be lost forever. Outside, the bright sun momentarily blinded Jack. When his vision cleared, he saw the rebels 20 meters ahead. Boarding a small ship, Princess Lyra was beginning to stir, weakly fighting against her captors. Jack ran full speed across the open ground. The ship's engines were powering up. 1 rebel stood at the ramp, firing to keep Jack back. Energy blasts tore up the ground around him, but Jack didn't slow. He fired his last 3 shots, forcing the rebel to duck. Then he was upon them, leaping onto the ship's boarding ramp. The rebel swung at Jack with a blade. Jack caught his arm and twisted, hearing the snap of alien bones. The rebel howled in pain. Jack shoved him off the ramp and charged into the ship. Inside, the remaining 2 rebels were strapping Princess Lyra into a containment field. They turned in surprise as Jack burst in. "Get away from her," Jack said, his voice deadly calm despite his racing heart. 1 rebel rushed him with a strange-looking weapon. The other turned back to the controls, desperate to get the ship airborne. Jack knew he had seconds to save the princess before they escaped with her forever. The rebel with the strange weapon lunged at Jack. With no ammunition left, Jack relied on his combat training. He sidestepped the attack and grabbed the rebel's arm, using the alien's momentum to slam him against the wall of the ship. The weapon clattered to the floor. Jack kicked it away and delivered a hard punch to the rebel's midsection. The Cresty doubled over, not expecting such raw physical strength from a human. "Lift off now," shouted the rebel at the controls. The ship shuddered as its engines powered up. Jack knew he had seconds before they were airborne. He finished the first rebel with a powerful strike to the head, knocking him unconscious. The pilot rebel abandoned the controls and drew a blade. "You will not stop us, human." The princess belongs with her own kind, not making deals with yours. Jack circled carefully in the small space. Last chance. Surrender. The rebel attacked with surprising speed. Jack felt a burning slash across his arm as the blade cut through his uniform. He ignored the pain and closed the distance, grabbing the rebel's wrist with both hands. They struggled, the blade inching closer to Jack's throat. "You are strong," the rebel hissed, "but we studied humans. You have weaknesses." The rebel's knee came up hard between Jack's legs. Despite the pain, Jack didn't loosen his grip. He headbutted the rebel, smashing his forehead against the alien's face. The rebel staggered back, blue blood streaming from his nose. "We studied you too," Jack growled. The ship lurched as it began to rise. Jack lost his balance for a moment. The rebel saw his chance and charged. Jack dropped to one knee and used the rebel's momentum to flip him over his shoulder. The rebel crashed into the control panel. Sparks flew and alarms blared. Jack grabbed the fallen blade and pressed it to the rebel's throat. "Power down. Now." The rebel reluctantly shut down the engines. The ship settled back to the ground with a heavy thud. With both rebels subdued, Jack rushed to Princess Lyra. She was still secured in the containment field, her silver eyes now open, and watching him with a mixture of fear and wonder. "Hold still, Your Highness," Jack said as he examined the controls. He pressed several buttons until the field disappeared. Princess Lyra fell forward, and Jack caught her before she hit the floor. You came for me," she said weakly, the gas still affecting her system. "Just doing my job," Jack replied, helping her to her feet. A sharp pain made Jack wince. Looking down, he saw a deep wound in his side. In the heat of combat, he hadn't noticed the rebel's blade finding its mark. "You're injured," Princess Lyra said, her voice stronger now. "It's nothing," Jack said, but his legs suddenly felt weak. Blood soaked his uniform. "Sit," the princess ordered, her tone leaving no room for argument. To Jack's surprise, she reached into a pouch at her waist and pulled out something that looked like blue clay. "Royal medical supply," she explained. "All Cresty royalty carry it." She pressed the substance to Jack's wound. It felt cool at first, then warm. The bleeding stopped almost instantly. "That should stabilize you until we reach proper medical care," she said. Shouts and the sound of running feet came from outside the ship. Princess Lyra." "Looks like the cavalry's arrived," Jack said, trying to stand. Princess Lyra put a hand on his shoulder. "Rest, Captain Miller. You've done enough." The door to the ship burst open. Cresty royal guards rushed in, weapons ready. They stopped short at the sight of the human soldier and the princess. "The rebels?" one guard asked. "Subdued," Princess Lyra answered, still looking at Jack. "Thanks to Captain Miller." The guards secured the rebels while Princess Lyra helped Jack to his feet. As they walked out of the ship together, Jack noticed something strange. The princess stayed unusually close to him, her hand holding his arm in a way that seemed more than just supportive. Outside, chaos still reigned. Fires burned in parts of the diplomatic building. Security forces were rounding up rebels. "We need to get you both to safety," a human security officer said. "There may be more rebels in the area." Jack nodded, suddenly feeling very tired. The adrenaline was wearing off, and the pain from his wounds was growing stronger. "We stay together," Princess Lyra said firmly, her silver eyes meeting Jack's gaze with an intensity he couldn't quite understand. "The main compound is compromised. We need to move to the secondary location," Jack said, leaning against a tree to catch his breath. Despite Princess Lyra's medical help, his wounds still throbbed with pain. After leaving the ship, they had discovered the rebel attack was larger than anyone thought. Rebel forces had taken control of the diplomatic building and were hunting for the princess. Jack and Lyra had escaped into the forest surrounding the compound, along with 2 human security officers who had been cut down by rebel fire minutes later. Now they were alone, miles from safety. How far to this secondary location? Princess Lyra asked, her silver eyes scanning the dense trees around them. 20 miles north, Jack replied. 2, maybe 3 days on foot through this terrain. Night was falling, bringing a chill to the air. Jack checked his emergency pack, 1 water filter, some ration bars, a small medical kit, and a tactical knife. Not much for a multi-day journey with an alien princess. We should make camp, Jack said. It's too dangerous to travel at night in unfamiliar terrain. Princess Lyra nodded. I can see better in darkness than you can, but I agree. You need rest to heal. Jack found a small hollow sheltered by the roots of a massive tree. He gathered soft moss for bedding and set up a simple alarm system with twigs and leaves around their perimeter. You are resourceful, Princess Lyra observed, sitting gracefully on the moss bed. Most Cresty warriors rely on technology for everything. Jack smiled for the first time since the attack began. Humans learn to adapt. Sometimes tech fails. Nature doesn't. Under the canopy of strange earth trees, they shared a ration bar. Jack was surprised when the princess didn't complain about the bland taste. Tell me about your world, Jack said, trying to keep his mind off the pain. Princess Lyra's eyes lit up. Cresty is beautiful. 3 moons circle our planet, making our nights bright with blue and silver light. Our cities float on the great oceans because much of our land is sacred forest. She spoke of crystal towers and underwater gardens, of strange animals and ancient traditions. Jack found himself captivated not just by the stories, but by the way she told them, with passion and wonder, so different from the formal princess he'd first met. And you? She asked eventually. Tell me of your life before you became my rescuer. Jack rarely talked about himself, but something about the quiet night and the princess's genuine interest loosened his tongue. He told her about growing up in a small town, joining the military to see the stars, fighting in wars he sometimes didn't understand. You've seen much pain, she said softly when he finished. Jack shrugged. Some, but good things too. Princess Lyra moved closer to him on the moss bed. In my culture, we believe pain and joy shape our spirits. The stronger the pain we endure, the greater our capacity for joy. She reached out and touched his hand. Jack felt a strange tingling sensation, like a gentle electric current passing between them. What was that? He asked, startled but not pulling away. Among my people, when 2 spirits recognize something in each other, a bond begins to form, she explained, her voice soft. It is rare, especially with those not of our kind. Jack wasn't sure what to say. This was far beyond his training in alien diplomacy. Dawn broke before either of them had slept much. As Jack checked his wound, now healing remarkably fast thanks to the princess's medicine, he caught Princess Lyra watching him with that same intense look she'd given him on the ship. We should move, he said, suddenly feeling awkward. Rebel patrols will be searching this area. As they prepared to leave their shelter, a sound made Jack freeze. Voices coming closer. He pulled Princess Lyra down beside him and covered her mouth gently with his hand. Rebels, he whispered in her ear. At least 4 of them, and they're heading straight for us. The rebels moved closer to their hiding spot. Jack reached for his knife, knowing they were outnumbered. Princess Lyra put her hand on his arm and shook her head. She pointed to herself, then made a gesture Jack didn't understand. Before he could stop her, Princess Lyra stood up and stepped into the open. Jack's heart stopped. Attention, rebels of Cresty, she said, her voice suddenly louder and more commanding than Jack had ever heard. Your princess stands before you. The rebels froze, clearly shocked. Jack remained hidden, his knife ready. Your Highness, one rebel said, bowing slightly. We've been searching for you. Your father is worried. Jack realized with a jolt that these weren't rebels at all. They were royal guards. Princess Lyra seemed to reach the same conclusion. You serve my father. Yes, Princess. After the attack, King Valen organized search parties. The rebel leaders have been caught. Jack slowly stood up, keeping his knife visible but not threatening. The guards immediately raised their weapons. No. Princess Lyra moved between Jack and the guards. This human saved my life. He is under my protection. The lead guard lowered his weapon and bowed. Forgive us, Princess. We didn't know. Within an hour, they were aboard a Cresty transport ship heading back to the diplomatic compound. Jack sat quietly, trying to make sense of the past 3 days. Princess Lyra hadn't left his side once, even insisting he receive treatment from her personal physician. The ship landed at what remained of the diplomatic compound. Guards and officials rushed to meet them. Jack saw Ambassador Davis looking worried, then relieved when he spotted Jack. But the most impressive figure was King Valen himself, waiting at the bottom of the ramp. His blue skin seemed paler than before, and his royal markings less bright. The king had clearly been worried sick about his daughter. Father. Princess Lyra ran down the ramp and into her father's arms. They spoke quietly in their native language. Jack followed slowly, still sore from his wound. Ambassador Davis approached him. Captain Miller, you've caused quite a stir, the ambassador said. Disappearing with the princess for 3 days. It wasn't exactly a vacation, sir, Jack replied. Before the ambassador could respond, King Valen approached. To Jack's surprise, the alien king bowed deeply to him. Captain Miller, the king said, his voice filled with emotion. You saved my daughter when all others failed. The Cresty will never forget this debt. Jack felt uncomfortable with the praise. I was just doing my job, Your Majesty. King Valen shook his head. No, human. What you did goes beyond duty. He turned to address the gathered crowd of humans in Cresty. Today, we honor a human warrior who embodies the best qualities of both our worlds. The king raised his hands, and the Cresty all touched their foreheads in what Jack guessed was a sign of respect. Captain Jack Miller, I bestow upon you the Mark of Valor, the highest honor in Cresty culture. King Valen took something from an aide. A small, glowing blue crystal. With this mark, you are symbolically adopted into the royal family of Cresty. The king pressed the crystal to Jack's forehead. It felt warm, then seemed to melt into his skin, leaving a faint blue mark. From this day forward, you are family, the king declared. Jack didn't know what to say. He looked at Princess Lyra, who was watching with shining silver eyes and a smile. Later, at a quiet moment during the celebration feast, Ambassador Davis pulled Jack aside. Do you have any idea what just happened? The ambassador asked, looking both impressed and worried. I was given an honor. I think, Jack replied. The ambassador shook his head. Captain, you've just been made a member of the Cresty royal family. This is unprecedented. The diplomatic implications are enormous. As Jack tried to process this, he felt a presence beside him. Princess Lyra had joined them, her silver eyes fixed on Jack. My father wishes to speak with you tomorrow in private, she said, her voice soft but excited. There is much more to discuss about your new position in our world. The next morning, Jack was escorted to a private chamber in the Cresty ship. His wound was almost fully healed, thanks to their advanced medicine. The mark of valor on his forehead tingled slightly as he walked. King Valen and Princess Lyra waited for him. Also present were several elderly Cresty with elaborate markings that Jack guessed meant they were important. Captain Miller, King Valen greeted him warmly. I trust you rested well. Yes, Your Majesty, Jack replied with a small bow. He'd been briefed on proper protocol by a human cultural advisor. King Valen gestured for Jack to sit across from him. Today we gather for a joyous announcement, one that will forever bind our worlds together. Jack glanced at Ambassador Davis, who stood nearby looking nervous. Whatever was happening, the ambassador hadn't been briefed either. King Valen continued, My daughter, Princess Lyra, has formed a soul bond with you, Captain Miller. She has chosen you as her life mate. Jack nearly fell out of his chair. Her, what? Ambassador Davis made a choking sound. The elderly Cresty nodded and hummed with approval. Princess Lyra stepped forward, her silver eyes fixed on Jack. "When you saved my life, when we shared those days in the forest, a rare bond formed between us. Such bonds are sacred to my people." I don't understand," Jack said, trying to keep his voice steady. One of the elderly Cresty spoke. "In our history, there are legends of warriors who save royal lives and form unbreakable bonds. These bonds transcend normal relationships. They are seen as blessed by the ancestors." Cain Vallon nodded. "When a member of the royal family forms such a bond, tradition demands they be united as mates. It is considered the strongest possible foundation for a partnership." Jack looked to Ambassador Davis for help. The ambassador looked as shocked as Jack felt. "Your Majesty," the ambassador finally said, "this is quite unexpected. In human culture, such decisions require more time and mutual agreement. The bond exists already," Princess Lyra said firmly. "I felt it in the forest. Captain Miller felt it too, though he may not have understood." Jack remembered the strange tingling sensation when she touched his hand, the odd connection he'd felt. But marriage, to an alien princess. "This would be the first union between our species," King Vallon said, his voice filled with pride. "A historic moment that would cement our alliance." The human delegation was quickly called for an emergency meeting in a separate room. Ambassador Davis paced back and forth. "This is unprecedented," he exclaimed. "Some on Earth will see this as an amazing opportunity for human-Cresty relations. Others will think you're being coerced." "I'm not being coerced," Jack said quietly. "But I don't know if I'm ready for whatever this is." The cultural advisor, Dr. Reed, spoke up. "From what I understand, this bond is deeply significant in Cresty culture. Refusing could be seen as a grave insult." Jack rubbed his temples. "I need to speak with Princess Lyra. Alone." An hour later, Jack and Princess Lyra walked in the garden of the diplomatic compound. Earth flowers mixed with Cresty plants in a symbol of cooperation. "I should have explained better," Princess Lyra said. "The bond I feel with you is not something my people take lightly. On Earth, marriage usually comes after a long period of knowing each other," Jack explained. The princess nodded. "The concept of time is different for us. We live for centuries. A bond like ours is rare and precious, transcending time." Jack stopped walking and turned to face her. "I won't lie. I feel something too. Something I can't explain. But this is moving very fast." Princess Lyra's silver eyes seemed to shine brighter. "Do you wish to break the bond?" Jack thought about their time in the forest, the stories they'd shared, the strange connection he'd felt. "No," he said finally. "I don't want to break it, but I need to understand it better." Princess Lyra smiled. "That is all I ask. Understanding comes before union." As they walked back toward the diplomatic building, Jack wondered what he was getting himself into. Tomorrow, he would meet with King Vallon to discuss what all this meant for him, for Princess Lyra, and for the future of human-Cresty relations. For 3 days, teams of cultural experts from both Earth and Cresty worked to find a solution. Jack spent hours in meetings, learning about Cresty bonding traditions and explaining human concepts of courtship. On the morning of the 4th day, Jack requested a private audience with King Vallon. The king received him in his personal quarters aboard the Cresty ship. "Captain Miller," the king said warmly, "have you reached a decision?" Jack stood tall, his military posture showing respect. "Your Majesty, I have. But first, I want to ask you something not as a king, but as a father." King Vallon looked surprised but nodded. "Proceed. Is your daughter's happiness more important than tradition?" The king was silent for a long moment. An interesting question from a human. He sighed, his blue shoulders dropping slightly. "Yes, her happiness means everything to me. After her mother died, Lyra became my world." Jack nodded. "Then we understand each other. I've come to offer a compromise." That afternoon, A special ceremony was held in the diplomatic garden. Humans and Cresty gathered together, curious about what would happen. Ambassador Davis looked nervous but hopeful. The Cresty elders watched with interest. Jack stood at the center, wearing a formal military uniform with special blue markings that matched the royal Cresty patterns. Princess Lyra entered wearing a shimmering gown that seemed to change colors with every movement. King Valen began the ceremony, his voice carrying across the garden. Today, we witness something never before seen in our history, a bond that crosses the stars themselves. Jack and Princess Lyra stood face to face. The mark of valor on Jack's forehead glowed softly in response to her presence. Captain Jack Miller has proposed an adaptation of our sacred bonding tradition, the king announced, one that honors both human and Cresty customs. Princess Lyra reached out and took Jack's hands in hers. That familiar tingling sensation passed between them. Stronger now. In Cresty tradition, she said, her silver eyes locked with his, the bond is immediate and eternal. In human tradition, there is a period of courtship and learning. Jack nodded. So we will have a 2-year engagement, following human custom. During this time, I will divide my duties between Earth and Cresty, learning your language and customs while Princess Lyra learns ours. And after 2 years, Princess Lyra continued, if our bond remains strong, we will complete the full Cresty mating ceremony. The Cresty elders murmured among themselves. One stepped forward. This has never been done before. The bond is meant to be completed immediately. King Valen raised his hand for silence. The bond between them is already stronger than any I have witnessed in my lifetime. Time will only strengthen it, not diminish it. The elder bowed to the king's wisdom and stepped back. Jack and Princess Lyra then pressed their foreheads together, the human custom of a kiss being too alien for the formal ceremony. The mark of valor on Jack's head glowed brightly where it touched her skin, sealing their promise. Later, at the celebration feast, Ambassador Davis approached Jack with a look of amazement. You've just made history, Captain. The first human Cresty engagement. Jack watched Princess Lyra across the room, talking animatedly with some human scientists. It's not about making history. It's about making a future. The next 2 years won't be easy, the ambassador warned. You'll face challenges from both worlds. Not everyone will understand. Jack smiled. Nothing worth doing is ever easy. As the evening ended, Jack and Princess Lyra stood together on a balcony, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there was her homeworld, soon to be part of his life too. Are you certain of this path? She asked softly. Jack looked at her, seeing not just an alien princess, but the person who had shared stories, fears, and hopes with him in the forest. The person with whom he had formed a bond that transcended words and worlds. I've never been more certain of anything, he answered, and the stars above seemed to shine a little brighter as 2 worlds moved closer together.